Looking for things to do in Florence? Then you've come to the right place. There are many of us who would like to tour the Renaissance-rich city and learn more about it than most people do. A city of history, architecture, and natural beauty lies beneath Florence's lovely surface, and it makes a fantastic home base for exploring the surrounding area. With this in mind, we'll tackle 8 things to do in Florence that you shouldn't miss out on. We will give you a perspective on what you should focus your time on in this guide for the best things to do in Florence. Despite the fact that this is not a comprehensive list, it does include the main sites in Florence such as the Uffizi, Accademia, and Duomo. With that said, let's get into it. Number 1, explore the Uffizi Gallery for a deep understanding of Renaissance art. A pretty amazing collection of art can be found at the Uffizi Gallery. It was originally a city office building, hence its name, which means offices in Italian, erected by the Medici family during their reign in Florence. It was converted into a museum in the 18th century. Back then, it was kind of an imitation-only thing. You had to know a guy to get in. As with the Louvre in Paris, it's absolutely massive. It's easy to spend an entire day there without even scratching the surface. The Uffizi Gallery showcases important works by some of the most famous Italian artists. It includes Giotto, regarded by many art historians as the father of modern painting, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, Donatello, and Caravaggio. Most of the time, we can handle about 2 to 3 hours before we start getting bored, skipping all the signage and mentally checking out as we mindlessly wander through the rest of the museum. If you're not terribly into art, a guided tour is the best option. Number 2, consider a walking tour to learn about Florence's fascinating history. The first gold florins that were used as international currency were minted in Florence, which was the wealthiest city in Europe and also the banking capital. We probably assumed Florence was wealthy because it had a lot of art. And contrary to popular belief, it was the opposite. Florence had a large collection of art due to its wealth, which allowed it to commission all these incredible pieces. In terms of history, it was all the makings of a good HBO series. Murder, mystery, intrigue, and plenty of salaciousness. The history of the Medici family and Florence's relationship with the Holy Roman Empire and Catholic Church is pretty fascinating. The best way to learn about it is by taking a walking tour that focuses on that history. Guided tours will give you a great overview of the city, and you probably like that most of them are only 2 hours long. So it's plenty of time to dive into the history, see some sights, and give you enough knowledge to know what to focus your time on or come back to later, but not so long that it feels like a slog by the end. We highly recommend it as an introduction to Florence, and you should do it as early in your trip as you can. Number 3, see the most magnificent sculpture on the planet. At some point, you're probably seeing Michelangelo's David, one of the most incredible sculptures on the planet. It stands in all its glory at the Galleria dell'Accademia di Firenze. Most tourists would comment that it's bigger than what you expected. Many thought that David was a life-size sculpture, but it actually stands at 17 feet tall, towering above you as you marvel at the details from below. The project was awarded to Michelangelo, who was born in nearby Santa Croce in the early 1500s after a string of other artists tried and failed to shape the huge block of marble into a lifelike sculpture. Along with the Uffizi Gallery and the Duomo di Firenze, the Accademia Gallery is one of the 3 attractions you shouldn't miss in Florence, in our opinion. Although David is primarily the focus of the Accademia Gallery, there are a few other important works that you should take the time to view. 2 David copies can be found in Florence. One is Piazza della Signoria, outside the Palazzo Vecchio, where the original used to be before being moved to the Accademia, and the other is higher up in Piazzale Michelangelo. Number 4, reach the top of Brunelleschi's dome by climbing 400-plus stairs. First of all, you have to get your tickets for this one in advance. It is required. Tickets must be reserved in advance with a specific time period. The cost of visiting Brunelleschi's dome, which is the dome atop the Florence Cathedral and arguably the most recognizable structure in Florence, is a little costly. A masterpiece built in the 15th century by Brunelleschi, who was actually a goldsmith at the time rather than an architect, draws thousands of tourists to Piazza del Duomo every day. But it's a beautiful vista. You get a 360-degree panorama of Florence from the top. There's no elevator or other route to the dome. You need to walk more than 450 stairs to get there. There are sections that are steep, sections that are narrow, and sections that are steep and narrow, and you'll probably be experiencing it with a lot of other people. There is a breathtaking moment when you're squeezing along a small balcony at the base of the dome. Higher above the church floor below, from there you can see the intricate artwork on the dome's interior, which is worth pausing to take in. You may want to think carefully before starting the adventure if you're afraid of heights, claustrophobic, or unable to climb the 450-plus stairs required to reach the top of the dome. Nevertheless, a beautiful view awaits you at the top. Number 5. Take a stroll at the Boboli Gardens. One of the nicest views in the city greets you as soon as you approach the gardens, with the Duomo in the heart of Florence out in the distance. About the itinerary, you certainly advise adding the Botanical Gardens, the Neptune Fountain, and the Fontana dell'Oceano. The Botanical Garden, the Fontana dell'Oceano, and the back of the grounds, where you can view the Fountain of Neptune from above, are the first things we recommend doing as you enter the gardens. Number 6. Ira Siasiata. Numerous people visit Allo Antiquero Venaio every day in huge numbers in order to visit one of their Instagram-famous focaccia sandwiches. It's one of the restaurants in the world with the most positive reviews across a variety of platforms. The popularity of this establishment has led to its global expansion. Siata is the name for these enticing sandwiches you see everyone carrying around lunchtime in Florence. In Florence, it's a highly common type of street food, which entails practically numerous different shops selling exactly the same thing, all with lengthy lines snaking down the street. It would be ideal to get it to go and travel to the Arno River to find a spot overlooking Ponte Vecchio and enjoy it with a view. It's a reasonable priced and filling lunch option. Number 7. Explore a more quiet side of the Arno. One of the city's hidden gem neighborhoods is Oltrarno, which, while being less than 10 minutes away on foot, feels a little less frantic and crowded with tourists than the historical center. The locals' Florence is just over the Ponte Vecchio. It is definitely worth spending a day exploring the fantastic restaurants, cafes, and other local businesses on the river's opposite bank. Start by crossing the Ponte Vecchio and moving up to discover the Boboli Gardens for a fantastic tour of Oltrarno. Number 8. Explore food markets. Although we have slightly different offerings, Florence's two main food markets are both worth a visit in our opinion. The first one is located northwest of the Duomo and Mercato Centrale. It's divided in two parts. Visit the Mercato di San Lorenzo, which is on the ground floor, and Mercato Centrale, which is the food floor on the upper floor, technically made of two independent marketplaces. On the ground floor of the market, there are a variety of fresh produce stands selling locally grown seasonal fruits and vegetables, butchers and cheesemongers, and we'll refer to as tourist shops selling a smorgasbord of various Tuscan delicacies that are all conveniently packed to make them ideal gifts or souvenirs. Wine, foods with truffle flavors, creme de pistachio, and other items are available, despite being rather pricey and not authentic. It's a nice spot to purchase for items to bring home. The upper floor houses a food hall with a variety of vendors providing everything from sushi to traditional Tuscan fare, and pretty much everything in between. However, based on the queue, it was obvious that pasta fresca, which is really below in a corner of the market, was the star of the show. Mercato Sant'Ambrogio is much more authentic than Mercato Centrale, despite being considerably less well-known and frequented. Inside are a number of stalls selling a variety of fresh items, such as meats, fish, and cheeses, as well as fresh cuisine. You may find what is effectively a farmer's market along the market's outside, where local merchants are selling recently gathered produce, and the majority of shoppers are locals. There's also a section where clothing and gadgets are sold. Did any of these activities entice you into trying Florence, Italy? Which things would you like to try doing first? Which place would you take the trip for? Let us know in the comments below. Like always, take care, and we'll see you in the next video.